But we'll have an episode about that probably the next day or so. But today we got to talk about something else that we've talked about, Bob, multiple episodes. Had one last year that went viral, well, among the Bama faithful anyway.
Yeah.
They didn't care for it. And the subject's going to be referees, man, officiating. Uh, don't want to sound like a crybaby, which I'm sure will be called a crybaby, but that's fine. I've been called worse, generally by him.
Right. Yeah.
But we've talked about it with someone on VolQuest, Desi Vol, is that
Yeah.
correct, Bob?
Yeah.
Put together some stats that we thought deserved attention.
hmm
So, Bob, I'll kind of let you go from here.
Okay. Yeah, he put it together. This is over the last 10 games versus Power 4 opponents. Uh, they have had, Tennessee's had 3 live ball penalties against our opponents that was enforced. They had 3 other ones that wasn't enforced. It was offsetting. Tennessee must have had a penalty called on us, and they just replayed it down. But they've had 3 that's been enforced over 10 games. Okay. So the first thing I thought of when I saw that, what was the average? And he mentions later on the average 2.38 game, not over 10 games, not over a season, 2 seasons.
So basically, we're getting, over the last 10 games, we've had as many live ball penalties on our opponent's offense
Yeah.
as what they average a game.
Right.
So we're about 110.
110. Right. Um, the 3 games, I thought something else I thought was interesting about it. So I dove in a little bit deeper and see if the penalties actually mean anything. Because me and you've talked about this many a times. You get a lopsided game where there's 8 penalties against one team, 1 against another. One team's up by 30 points. You'll see some flags thrown to kind of even it out a little bit.
Yeah, it happens all the time in basketball and happens in football too, though.
Yeah, I mean it's the way the refs kind of and I
They
truly
control, yeah, they control the way the game is played, and when it no longer matters, they even it up.
well, I mean they don't want it to be a big deal later on. Say, hey, well, you called almost the exact same number of fouls,
Yeah, what are you complaining
What are
about?
you complaining about? Anyway, so I went back and looked. Uh, One of the penalties was against Missouri last year. At the time of the penalty, they was up 29-7. Okay, so that did
The
not
game is pretty much over.
the game was over. Okay, all right. NC State this year, they had an offensive holding called against them. We was up 27-3. Game was over. Okay, the only one that was semi in doubt was Georgia last year. They was up 17-7 at the time of the holding call against them. Now, if you remember that game or not, at that point in the game, they was dominating.
Yeah, we started the game off with a huge right run, Jalen Wright.
5-yard run or something
Yeah,
like that.
blew the top off the stadium, and then we called it off that day. We went ahead and went to the locker room. It felt like because that was the last thing we done.
I bet you at the time of that penalty to him, we probably was under 100 yards total offense. It was horrible.
Yeah,
We
that's
get,
hard to do when you've already got 75 on one play.
Yeah.
But that's the way we were playing.
but the
day.
game was. If you was watching the game, you had to feel that game was over with, even though it was still
It was a game,
it was
but
still in the game.
there wasn't much in doubt.
So, how do you look at those stats and say that this is just, a little bit of a little off, a little bit? That's not a little off.
Well, no, it's not. And like I said, we made an episode last year with
Yeah.
Alabama and pointed out multiple calls in that game,
Yeah.
and like I said, upset more Alabama fans than when they realize they're not supposed to be dating at their family reunions.
Yeah,
Um,
that pisses them off.
Yeah, it makes them really mad. That's why they get so red. That's the crimson coming through. But and we've talked about it in other games too. And it's not
Right.
just it don't just happen in Tennessee. It happens. You see it a lot.
Mhm.
But right now there seems to be there's definitely a trend where even though our defensive line
Yes.
is really been, considered maybe one of the best in the country this year. And last year we had Pierce, we had Tyler Barron on
Thank
the
you.
edges, we
Yeah.
had Omar Normalot with 5.5 sacks coming up the gut.
Yeah.
You're getting pressure on quarterbacks. But yet there's never a hold.
Yeah. When you have a really good defensive line, you would think you're going to get more
More
holds
points.
than average.
Mhm.
It makes sense to me. Another factor, Tim, that should pump this number up. We shouldn't be at 2.3. We should be over 3 uh, penalties called against our opponents, live ball penalties, simply for the fact that of that reason. And we run more plays. We run more plays because we're a fast-paced offense. The other team runs more plays. So
Yeah, there's more possessions per
more
game.
possessions. I mean, we're probably at what, 15, 20% more plays than the average football game.
The national average, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. Uh, so that number should not be. Our number shouldn't be low. We should be high.
Yeah, and as it is, it's virtually non-existent.
It's almost nothing. Uh, and this has to get out there. I mean, or it's going to continue. But let me ask you this, Tim. I mean, you've talked about this before on another video. Okay, there's something up here. It's. I'm just going to say what it is. It's corruption. This is not a one-off type thing. This is intentional. Okay. Then why? Why? Why are the refs doing this? And I think I've had a theory for a while.
Well, I disagree with you, Bob, 100%. It's not because you're such a good-looking feller and they're upset with the teams that you follow.
I'm sure that's not it. Yeah.
I'm sure it's not it either.
Pretty sure
Uh,
yeah.
no, I mean, honestly, they probably don't like the whole fast-paced offense.
That's my theory.
And so they're not giving, us. They want, if it catches on, if we dominate, win a lot of games,
More
catches
teams will
on,
do
and which you're seeing more teams do it.
Yeah.
It is becoming more and more prevalent, and it's going to continue that way. The tempo is here.
Yeah.
But heupel is one of the lead proponents of it. It
Right.
Was the fastest of them all.
They have to work a lot harder. You watch the refs in our games versus the refs in a normal game. They are constantly running. Uh, it's like that. They don't want our possessions to last, any longer than it does.
Yeah.
I mean,
Which is why we got called 3 holding penalties last game.
yeah. I mean, that gives them a break, slows us down.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, uh, I think that's what it is. I think it's the refs are tired, Tim, and they're like, hey, and it's got to be collective for it to be this long, for this many games, different out of conferences. It's NC State and Iowa last year, different. It's a collective effort here against us on this. And if it don't stop, if this don't get brought out in the light, it's going to continue. Now, why? Some people ask me, why hasn't Josh Heupel brought this up? Well, because it's going to cost him hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, in fines and behind the door lashing
Right.
from the SEC office.
Right. And I'm sure, look, I am 100% sure that they have brought it up to the conference office.
Yes.
They just don't make it a public display of it.
Yeah. But they're not going to do nothing about it, Tim, until it gets brought out. I mean,
Well, there's no there's no accountability
right,
from the conference when it comes to officiating. Never has been.
right,
And one of the things all coaches are upset with constantly is the fact that they turn in plays every week to the office for review. That's a nice way of putting it.
yeah,
When they're really saying what the F's going on here.
right,
And what's really irritating to all of them, unless you're in one or two cities,
right,
is that you hear just chirps, bird chirping.
yeah,
is the only response you get.
right. Oh yeah, they keep the back of their officials. They have always had their back on that stuff. Uh, but guys, if you agree with this, um, say something in the comments. Share this video. Share it on social media. I'm not as, we want our videos out there, but the thing is, the main thing, we want this out there. Put pressure on other podcasts. Put pressure on uh, other media outlets. This kind of stuff needs to get out there.
Let's go Vol Twitter.
Yes, Vol Twitter. That's where it needs to go. If this gets brought out there enough, this will stop. If it don't, it will continue, and we can't afford a play or two like that a game. Will change the outcome sometimes.
I've always heard whatever you allow, you encourage.
Yes.
And
Silence is consent. That's it. I've heard.
well, yeah, you sicko. Thanks for your ad.
All right.
So on that note,
All right. All right. That'd be it, guys.
go Big Orange.
Go Bucs.